All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the organizational budget orientation meeting for the spring of 2024 for this 2024 fiscal year. For those of you whose second time around this is, a lot of the information is going to be similar, but there are some important changes to watch out for. Also, before we get started, make sure to stay until the end, at which point we will be sending out the attendance form for you to fill out and log your attendance. But with that, get started. So, the four main people that you're going to be interacting with throughout this process are myself, Andrew Forbes, the chair of the Undergraduate Senate's Finance Committee. Um, I, along with Vice Chair Alexander, will be the two people that you interact with during your finance hearings. You will either have myself or him leading your funding hearings. Um, there is also Treasurer Grodsky, who I know is here right now if he would like to introduce himself briefly and explain his role in the process.
Hi, all. Treasurer is responsible, for a variety of things. One, any organization applying for funding is required to have passed the treasurer's test. That's available if you can go on the Senate website, along with a variety of other places to find that, but principally the Undergraduate Senate Heal Life page as well. The treasurer's test, I'm responsible for certifying treasurers. I'm also responsible for overseeing the expenditure of funds. I don't directly handle that, or I don't directly process that. That's processed by the Carolina Union Business Office and the Undergraduate Student Government Controller, or the QSO controller now. But I assist with that and provide oversight for them. So those are the two principal roles relevant to USG funding.
All right. Thank you for that. There's also the Speaker of the Undergraduate Senate, Andrew Gary. Most of his role in this process is handling the final dispersal of the budget bill, which all of your funding requests will be compiled into, and then sending that out to things like the Carolina Union Business Office and other appropriate entities, so to make sure that your funds are accessible. Um, all right, and I explained Vice Chair Alexander's role. So moving on, what is the USG funding process? So the Undergraduate Senate appropriates the undergraduate portion of the student organizations fee. This is approximately $6 per student per year. We collect all of that money and, along with our financial reserve, use that to create our budgets and calculate the funds that we will be able to appropriate. We conduct our process based on the undergraduate financial regulations compiled as Title VI of the Undergraduate Student Code. That code is accessible on the Senate's website. And in order to participate in the funding process, you must review and thoroughly understand Title VI. This will be tested for in the undergraduate treasurer's test, as Treasurer Grodsky explained. And an addendum, since I have received a number of questions on this matter. If you were previously the treasurer of an organization in the fall and you're returning for the spring semester, and you have taken and passed that test back in the fall, you do not need to retake the test to be eligible for funding in the spring. Those scores will carry over and you'll be good for this next round of funding. Uh, okay, So this whole funding process is split into just about three sections. First, being the requests, which will be occurring the weekend of January 12th to 14th. This is the first step to drafting your organization's funding request and then submitting it to the Senate. This step is managed by myself and the rest of the Finance Committee. After that will be the funding hearings. At this point, you will come to a meeting of the Senate's Finance Committee held on Zoom, present your organization, what you're about, why you're requesting funding, um, and you will follow the committee as we generate our recommendations that are considered to the full undergraduate Senate in the budget bill. Finally, after the budget bill is passed and transmitted to the union business office, um, your organization will be carrying out your activities, and then you will be requesting reimbursement for your expenses. This is handled directly through the student controller, carried out by CUSO and overseen by the undergraduate treasurer. Um, yeah, so you will be working with the Carolina Union Business Office on this end. They can handle reimbursements, P cards for events, purchases, and stuff like that. Okay, so we base our process of prioritizing funds and appropriating them based on three objective criteria. Um, and they are representation, vitality, and specialization. Representation is the number of students affected and involved in whatever event project that your organization is holding. Um, we will anticipate representation through your presentation by examining past involvement in your events, enthusiasm, and anticipated engagement that you will communicate to us. Um, After that is vitality. We'll evaluate your program's importance to the organization. We will assess its priority among other sponsored programs, certain fundraising aspects, and the impact on your organization's morale. Our third and final objective criteria is specialization. That is the uniqueness of your program to the undergraduate student body. You will consider cultural educational value, how your programs overlap with other campus programs, the recognition that is brought to the university through your programs, and the association that your organization has um, with these events. And these funding criteria help us to determine where certain things are prioritized. Since, of course, we're working with limited budgets, um, we will have to choose things that may deserve funds over some other things. If an organization follows all of our rules properly, they will receive funding. But in terms of that final dollar, we would, going through these criteria, give a bit extra to organizations that are larger as opposed to those that are smaller. Programs specifically that an organization needs to survive and thrive, as well as organizations and programs that are more unique than others. After this, okay, so going into the process of applying and receiving funds itself, first come the budget submissions. Organizations must submit the budget request form and explanation at congress-finance.unc.edu/appropriations. This link is um, shared both on the email that was sent out from Student Life as well as on the Senate's website, senate.unc.edu/funding. All of this and more is explained there. Semi-annual budget requests are limited to $15,000. That is the maximum amount that you are eligible to apply for during this cycle. If you apply for more than that, we will not be able to hear your request. And if your budget request is submitted early enough, we will communicate to you that such a request exceeds our limits and will not be able to be heard. So make sure to get your requests in a timely manner to make sure that nothing is wrong with that. The window for these budget requests will open on January 12th at 5 p.m. and close on January 14th at 11:59 p.m. That is the first weekend after the first day of classes. So make sure to keep an eye out for that and make sure that everything you have is prepared in advance. When crafting your budget submission, you must list each program that you plan to use funds for, as well as the amount that you're requesting in each funding category, which we can see on the next slide. It's best to craft your budget requests in more detail rather than less. This helps the Senate truly understand what your organization needs funds for and help us help you by understanding everything that you need funds for so we can make sure that you get those. And also ahead, there are several prohibitions on what may be funded, which we will go into. All right, so we're working with 10 funding categories this cycle. They are building venue rental. These are funds for securing a location, excluding lodging. So if you are a performance group and your organization needs to rent out a certain theater for a performance, you will put that request in there. Dues and fees. These are funds for paying activity-related fees, excluding prohibited dues or fees, which we will go into later. This is, say, a competition group of some kind, and your organization needs registration fees so that your group can participate in this event. That is where you would request those funds. Next is equipment rental. These are funds for temporarily renting equipment, fairly straightforward. Lodging. These are funds for providing accommodation during official activities or travel. We do have specific guidelines for how we fund lodging. That would be for students, $35 per student per night for any hotel costs that your organization will need. Next is supplies. These are funds for essential tangible goods and materials. This is consistently one of the most popular and most common sources of funding that we appropriate to. If your organization needs a physical item that you will have and own, this is where you're going to request those funds. After that is printing and publicity. These are funds for producing and disseminating printed materials for promotion. The specific rates and formulas that we use for that can be found in the undergraduate code. I know that there is a question on this in the treasurer's test, so all treasurers should have a fairly well fleshed out understanding of that. After that are stipends. These are funds for paying undergraduate student government members for their work if they perform a specific university function. So if this student did not perform their job, the university would need to hire staff to do that job. This stipends category can only be requested by student government entities, registered student organizations, which the vast majority of you are, will not be able to apply for stipends money. Or if you do, that money cannot be appropriated. After that is clothing. These are funds for purchasing clothing or costumes for productions. Certain items we have specific formulas for. Again, all of it can be found in the undergraduate code. After that is travel. These are funds for transportation outside of Chapel Hill. Most common is gas reimbursements for car travel. For trips over 100 miles, this is going to be 33 cents per car per mile. Under 100 miles, it is 54 cents per car per mile. We can also fund plane, train, etc. travel. Further details and restrictions on that, again, found in the code. Finally, labor fees. These are funds for paying employees, excluding compensation for permanent employees. So if your organization needs specific work done, um, like a DJ or a photographer for whatever event you need, this is where you will apply and receive those funds. All right. Okay. So now comes the application demonstration. Um, we'll go into the funding. This is the funding portal that you will request all of your funds towards. This is the Congress Finance website. Um, I have more tabs on this because for admin purposes, but you will click on submit a funding request. This is where you'll go. You will fill out your organization's name in full. Um, After that, you will list out the names, onions, emails of your president and treasurer. Um, you will fill out as accurately as you can predict will be this semester the number of undergraduate and graduate members of your organization that both pay fee or pay dues and do not pay dues. Um, if your organization does not or plans to have more members in this upcoming semester, do your best to estimate what the most likely number of that will be for our purposes of representation of the student body and the impact that your organization has. Following that, you will include the number of students affected by your programming. This is different from membership. These are anyone who's going to be impacted by the work that you do. So if you're a performance group, the membership would be those performers in your group and number of students impacted. That's going to be everyone in the audience. Next, is your organization officially recognized by the university? Um, for this one, you can click yes or no. In order to receive student government funds, you will need to be formally recognized by the university in terms of having a unique RSO letter that is given to you by Student Life. If you do not have this, we cannot give you funds because the um, Union Business Office cannot uh, provide funds to organizations that do not have official recognition from the university. So in order to receive funds, that answer would need to be yes. Will this event purchase be identified as being sponsored by Student Congress? Another requirement that we have is that all events that will be funded in part or whole by the Undergraduate Senate do need to state that their funds were in part or full provided by student government for those purposes. So the answer to this would have to be yes if you wish to receive student government funds. Will alcohol, tobacco, or firearms be purchased with these funds? Um, the answer to this should be no. Um, you can kind of get a sense that these are somewhat leading questions, but they do our best to check all of our bases. So yeah, we cannot fund any alcohol, tobacco, or firearms. Um, do you have a certified organizational treasurer? Again, the treasurer's test with passage with an 80 or above is a requirement of any group that would like to receive funding from the Undergraduate Senate. So if you wish to receive funds, um, that will need to be a yes. And then I see that a hand is up. We will have a period of question and answer at the end of this presentation. So if you can all hold tight, we will answer all questions that you have at the end. Thank you. All right. And then by electronically signing this, do you acknowledge that your organization does not discriminate on the basis of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, national origin, or disability? This one should be a yes. Um, this, yeah. And then do you have office space? If so, where? This one's not a requirement, but is helps for our records. All right. Following this, which term are you requesting funds? You're going to be requesting funds in the spring 2024 budgetary cycle. As a drop-down list, there are a bunch of them, but this is the one that you're going to want to make sure that your budget request is filled out into to make sure that we don't miss it. Following that, we have all of these categories. Several of them do have this invalid label. We do not fund anything in an invalid category. Based on the technological restraints of the website that we use to um, submit and process all of our budget requests, does not allow us to hide these without deleting them. So for the purposes of record keeping, we leave them here, but label them with invalid. So if you wish to receive funds for something, do not request them in one of these invalid categories. But the rest of them, you will be able to request funds for. Um, Following this, statement of purpose for your organization. Give a brief blurb on what your organization is, what it does, and why exactly as a whole your organization needs funding. Following this, you will list each program that your organization wishes to hold this semester that will be performed using Senate funds. More detail is better than less. Um, Ideally, you will give as itemized as you can a list of the funds that you're requesting in the categories that you're requesting for. Um, and all of that information divided by event will be listed here. Um, After that, if there are any notes that you have, um, you will additionally list those. And then by submitting, you are affirming under penalty of the honor code that everything in there is true and correct. Um, Fairly straightforward. Don't lie on this because, as per our code, a one or more serious violations of our treasury laws can put you in trouble with the honor court, um, just because this is university student fee money that we're working with, and fraud on that end would be very bad. This hasn't happened
Now, Hayford, the family,
in recent memory at all. So don't be the first to cause a problem there. But that is all that you will need to do on your end to receive this funding or to submit this funding request, after which point we will compile them, give you a funding hearing time slot, and then we'll go from there. But all right. Yes, so after all of the funding applications are collected, we will hold funding hearings. We hold these hearing requests in two subcommittees on behalf of the full undergraduate Senate, one led by myself, one led by Vice Chair Alexander. Um, our finance hearings will be happening on January 23rd, 24th, 25th, 27th, and 31st. Each organization will be randomly assigned to a hearing time slot during these dates. There are, okay, so the 23rd, the 24th, the 25th, and the 31st are weeknights. These will be starting after about 7:30 p.m. And going until about 11 p.m. And then the one on the 27th is a Saturday. These will be held between the hours of 10 and 5 p.m. And yes, so during these funding hearings, each organization will be given a short interval of roughly 10 minutes to present your request, and then you'll be subject to questions from the members of the Senate's Finance Committee, mostly in terms of clarification on certain points brought up in your application, as well as where you want to see our funds prioritized, since we will need to cut funding requests down in order to fit our budget. All right, so yeah, during your organization's funding hearing, senators will try to gauge how your request aligns with our objective criteria. So examples of these: how many people do you expect to attend your event? This goes into our representation criteria. We want to make sure that Senate funds are being used as efficiently as possible. So clarification on that end helps us greatly. And then, of course, which of these programs would you prioritize funding for? Since we will need to cut down, we want to make sure that our funds are being used to the greatest advantage to you. So we will be asking clarifying questions on that end. Additionally, will more events in this vein be held by other organizations throughout the semester? This helps us get an idea of how unique the programs that your organization is holding are going to be on the campus community as a whole, to make sure that we are promoting a diverse spread of student events and programs held by student organizations. All right, so after the funding hearing, we will hear the budget bill and the fall Senate will consider it. So after these funding hearings conclude, the subcommittee recommendations are reconciled to meet the budget total and then compiled into one large budget bill, which includes all budgetary appropriations. The most recent budget bill from back in the fall is can be found on the Senate's website, senate.unc.edu/funding. Down at the bottom of that page is a link to the PDF of the very long and thorough budget bill that we passed for the fall semester. So the Senate will consider and ultimately vote on the budget bill. Once the Senate approves the budget bill and is signed by the student body president, you will have access to your appropriated funds. As our timeline currently holds, the budget bill should be passed by the full Senate on Valentine's Day, February 14th, after which point it will have a week to be signed by the president and dispersed to the Carolina Union Business Office. So expect about by February 21st or so, you will have these funds available to you. All right, and now the final step being expenditure. In order to apply for reimbursement, you must submit the appropriate form at Heal Life. Then for organizations, RSO Finances. The proper title for their page is Student Organization Finances. This will have all of the links to reimbursement forms, travel forms, and then calendar links to schedule meetings with the Carolina Union Business Office to use their P cards to purchase items for your organization. Of course, you should follow all of the steps required in those forms and reference the supporting documents on that Heal Life page. Always make sure to save your receipts and other documentation of your expenditures, because the Union Business Office needs all of the supporting documents that they can get to make sure that you spent those funds and that you can receive reimbursement for them. If you need help paying for an expense in advance rather than reimbursement, reach out to the treasurer and the student controller well in advance so they can possibly help you use a P card. Again,
Andrew, may I make just a few addenda?
yes, of course.
As of this semester, uh, there is going to be a de-emphasis on reimbursement. All student organizations in essentially whatever circumstance will have the option of making advance payments with a university P card. If you go to the student organization's finances your life page that's linked at the top of the screen, all you have to do is schedule a meeting with the student controller and she will be more than happy to help you make those expenditures by P card. It should be very easy. That can be done ahead of time. You do have, if necessary, the option to spend out of your own organization's funds and then apply for reimbursement, but it's actually preferred that you use a P card. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask me. But that it will generally be the main resource for spending these funds.
True. And thank you. All right. That concludes our formal presentation. Don't go just yet because we will have the attendance form that you will need to submit. That can be found. I'll send it into the chat. Okay. Fill out that form to log your attendance.